very few products that make you stop and reconsider your place in the universe. The Ray Samuels B21 was certainly one of them. But today may challenge that magical experience, and I couldn't be more excited. Welcome back, everybody, to the Director's Garage. I am your host and resident idiot, Michael. And today, folks, we are in for some major fun. This is a product I've been trying to audition for more than a year. I was hoping to get a seat in front of this bad boy at Can Jam, and it didn't work out. Then about a week ago, it turned up on my doorstep, and boom! I couldn't be more thrilled to share it with you all. What's in this box comes courtesy of ModHouse mogul Ryan Deitz, who contacted me about a month ago and asked me if I'd be interested in checking out a god-tier product. I said, sure. So he hooked me up with a viewer, his name's Samir, and he generously sent this product my way, and I can't thank them both enough for this unique opportunity. So let's start opening this thing up. Now, this one, folks, will not disappoint. It is considered by many to be the finest of its kind, and I couldn't be more excited to finally get to share this thing with you all. All right, I think we're about there. Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Well, wait a second. Before I do that, does it not look like this thing has more mileage on it than Keith Richards' liver? This thing has been around the globe a few times, I think, anyway. All right, guys, let's do it for now, for real, okay? And oh my God, I got some tape. I got some tape. Get a little here, get a little there. All right, let's see if we got it now. All right, let's go. And oh my God, we got ourselves a Pelican case, guys. It looks like we got ourselves a Pelican case. Let's get a little further down into this thing and take a look. Wow. Okay, and here is that Pelican case. Oh my God, okay. And a couple of latches. And are you guys ready? Are you ready? Here we go. And oh my God, I got some stuff down here, but what we're looking at is, oh yeah, bad boy. This, folks, is a Kobo 465. Yes, it's the Kobo 465. This, folks, is considered by many to be the pinnacle of headphone amplification, and it's got a price to match. $15,000, making this the most expensive product I've ever reviewed on the Director's Garage. Do you have any Grey Poupon? Before we go any further, let's check out what this thing comes with, and it's got himself a power cable. We got a couple of little product cards. Don't really need this. So let's check out this front panel, shall we? Okay, so you've got yourself an enable and disable for 3 different outputs. You've got a 4-pin XLR, 2 2-channel XLRs, Y, and a standard 1/4-inch jack with an enable disable button for each. Let's check out the other buttons here. You've got a low, mid, and high output gain, more on that in a second. And then you've got your RCA or balanced inputs and a power toggle and a very heavy but small volume knob. Kind of wish I got a bigger volume knob for 15 grand. Let's flip it over. Backside, you got yourself an AC input, you've got yourself a fuse, and a pair of RCA unbalanced, and then your XLR ins, and then these come with apparently a minus 10 dB or a plus 4 dB pad on the inputs, so you can select the proper input voltage. Very good, very good. Okay, I like the CNC metal front plate here. I think this thing is pretty attractive. Nice logo etched into it, and a little cat. Gotta like yourself a cat. Who doesn't like a cat? Kind of a run-of-the-mill power switch here. This thing's plastic. And these things here, these things remind me of my old video decks from the 1980s. Kind of a retro thing happening here. But I don't think styling is really what this amp is all about, so let's talk about the power situation.
It's about power. Director's Garage.
Now, I I do know a little bit about this amp. I happen to read up a little bit on it because, you know, intellectual.
Okay.
Says no one ever. This thing is Class A. It's fully balanced. There are independent left and right amp circuits. 32 volts, good for around 7 watts combined output at about 32 ohms. 3.5 watts per side. That's not a ton of power. That's less than my Woo Audio WA5LE tube amp and a bit more than the Zale HM1 I used to have. Now, unlike the Zale though, this amp swings from plus 1.6 dB to, wait for it, 30 decibels of gain, which is a shit ton of gain. This thing may have the ability to blow the doors off the ModHouse tungsten. But as I like to say, here's the thing, and it's a really big thing. Did you do that with me? Okay. When you throw that much gain at the circuit, remember, gain is not power. Gain is sensitivity. Think of the ISO setting on your camera. When you increase the ISO, the image gets brighter, but you're not adding any more light to the frame, or power in our case. You're just telling the sensor, or the circuit, to be more sensitive to the light, in this case the power, that's available. But in both cases, the trade-off is grain. The picture gets grainy by turning up the sensitivity, and likewise, the audio circuit gets noisier the more gain you employ. Now, this is the highest gain I personally have ever seen on an amp. So, will it make the signal more noisy? That's something we're going to be listening for as we head into a director's garage sound impression. This one's going to be good. I want to start out this journey of champagne wishes and caviar dreams on some familiar ground. Who writes this shit? Okay, well, it's kind of a tradition around here to start off some really big products with some Grateful Dead, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to do American Beauty, and we're going to go to Box of Rain. But before I do that, I should also mention we're going to be using the Sesfara because this is my most familiar headphone right now. I know what this sounds like. I know how hard this thing is to drive. I'm going to be going medium gain, which is I think around 10 dB plus 10 dB, not the full 30. I don't think I need that for this. I'm going 6 volts out of the DAC, and we're going to check out and see how we do. All right, let's check this out. This is Box of Rain, folks. Box of Rain. Oh. Okay, about half volume. Okay, first thing that hits me is the detail. There is a ton of detail here. I'm picking up more strings, picks on the string, the strumming, imaging very locked in. I'm actually hearing some differentiation, very minor differentiation between the location of the voices in the stage. It's really almost accentuated. It almost sounds like there's some sort of stereo effect going on. It's very interesting. I don't know that the stage is that wide, but the image is maybe the most precise I've heard. It's when I go up to the high gain mode, this thing loses some of its finesse. Remember I said it was like kind of laid back and beautiful and smooth? It loses that. It gets a little more aggressive. But like not even to 10 o'clock and it's just totally blasting. It's too much. I'm not overdriving the headphone though. That's a good thing. There is a little more kick down low though when I'm in the high gain setting. Let me go back to low. Yeah, things are more relaxed, they're more open. It's a more pleasing sound on medium gain as opposed to high gain when I kick this thing into high gain, it's like everything jams more together. I lose some of that definition, some of that beautiful spaciousness that I was hearing off the cut in that first listen. I am getting more aggressive with the sound, but I don't think it's as pleasing. So I wonder if this is kind of like the situation where you have the option of throwing it into this grittier mode if you want to listen to some hard rock, which we'll listen to shortly. I want to go to another track though. Let's get something else working here. So I'm going to go to some Supertramp, and you guys know I love Supertramp a lot, and we're going to go to Crime of the Century, one of the best recorded albums in history, and the track I'm going to listen to this time is Bloody Well Right. This has a lot of dynamics to it, It's a very interesting track. Oh. All right, here's the first chink in this armor, okay? Now I started playing this and I was in high gain, and I turned up the volume to like 11 o'clock when it got into a quiet passage. I can hear a lot of noise underneath the sound. When I dropped it back to the middle gain setting, much quieter noise floor. So there is that trade-off at 30 dBs, which is a lot of gain. Now, overall, I'm hearing some incredible stuff here. I believe that the image is really what's coming forward out of this amp so far. First, I'm going to resume it, and so I can talk while we're listening. But definitely think that middle gain, that high gain, is going to be something I'm not going to want to get into too much. Because I can go all the way, nearly wide open on this. I can't hear any noise floor. Nothing remarkable. And on high gain, I could hear a lot of noise down at the bottom of the signal. All right, here comes the kick on this song. Oh. Yeah. This to me is very reminiscent of the Zale. But it's elevated. It's a much more elevated signal than the Zale. The image is more precise. There's a little more drive coming through. It's like the Zale with a little more aggression. And it's really lovely. There's very little to complain about here. This is amazing. There is good energy on the bottom end of this thing. It's not manhandling this as far into bass though, like the B21 was. The B21 was just, you were getting that concussive effect out of this driver, which I've only heard from the Anlium. This doesn't approach that, but it's more refined. It's more refined. The image is sharper than the B21. There's great separation here. It's very beautiful. I don't know that this would be the first choice of amp for me, given my musical tendencies, which are, I like rock, and if I was like more in the jazz lane, and I was more in the refined music, because I'm not, I'm not very refined, guys. If I was staying strictly into the jazz lane, into classical, into acoustic music, into very high fidelity, refined music, acoustic guitars and picking and strings and all of that stuff, this is a perfect amp for that. This is a good amp for something like a Supertramp. Like, there's hand claps happening on this, and they're so crisp, so precise, and they're locked into position. I mean, this thing images better than almost any amp I've heard. That's what's really impressing me. The image and the detail. just top grade. Top grade. This amp is crazy fast. So the huge tip of the cap right there. All right, I want to go to something from Steely Dan because it's such a great audiophile set of recordings. And I'm going to go to, let's make sure we get a good version up here. I'm going to go to Asia is the album I'm going to go to. And I want the 192 kilohertz version. And we're going to go to the title track on that. This is a magical recording. And they just remastered this for high res, and it's beautiful. Because I think this is going to be more in the lane than Supertramp or even Grateful Dead. Yeah. Just beautiful amp. I mean, this is a top tier, absolute top tier amp. I don't have any doubt of that. And there's great bass representation. I think the mids are really what impressed me, and the treble with all the detail, more so than the bass. The bass is wonderfully represented, and it sounds like there's good detail down low. It's getting so much right. It's got the power that I wish the Zale had. It's terrific. Before I continue, I want to do one test on this, and that's to run it in high gain on a 2-volt source and see what that sounds like, because the 6-volt output of the DAC with high gain was noisy. So let's hear what it's like. Much better shape. So the rule here would seem to be, yeah, I'm not getting a lot of that noise that I was getting with the 6-volt output. Let's do a slam track just for the hell of it. And to do that, we're going to go to... So let's go to one of my slam tracks. Los Lobos, Kiko, Dream in Blue is the song. This thing, if it's going to give me slam, this will be the one that'll give it to me. Lot of, oh, but there's a good thump down low. I do think there's great bass representation on this amp. It's completing the signal nicely. I'm just not getting the whack on the back of the head, which is something, I just love that effect, especially when I'm listening to driving music. I like that thump, and I just don't hear it here. Vocals have a lot of texture. Horns are crisp and sharp. Again, that image specific. This is a lovely, lovely amp. And it should be. For 15 grand, this thing ought to fart unicorns. Right? Yeah. I don't know, maybe it's not the sub, but maybe it's the mid bass that's got this great representation. It just sounds really like a beautifully full, complete signal, but with great separation. I mean, we're talking about a good amp, and that's what it sounds like. Now, you know I want to get some jazz in this episode, so we're going to go to Cannonball Adderley. I'm going to go to something else. We're going to listen to Autumn Leaves, one of my very favorite jazz tracks of all time. Again, not a huge soundstage on this thing. The decay is good. It goes off into the distance, but I'm not getting like a crazy spatial thing. Yeah, it's beautiful. This is really where this thing is shining, is something like jazz, where you got all acoustic instruments, and you're not going into distortion and that kind of thing. Oh. God, a string bass is just... It's in the room with you on this thing. You've got the Sam Jones bass, and then, of course, the Art Blakey drums right here. And then on this side, they've split off both Miles and Cannonball with his sax. And the sax is just so this conversation between Miles and Cannonball in this song is just everything. But it's in very tight, tighter than I remember to my ear. So you're getting a stage, but it's not the crazy widest stage I've ever heard on this album. It's kind of interesting. Here's the thing. I'm going to pause it here for a second. This is a different experience for an amp for me. It is similar to the Zale HM1 in its image, in its clarity, in its sort of more laid-back approach to the music. It's got better bass drive than I heard the Zale. Zale just didn't have enough raw horses under the hood. This has got enough raw horses under the hood, especially when you've got 30 dB of gain to play with. What I did note, obviously, earlier is that 6 volt setting is not going to play well with the 30 dBs of gain. The amp got very, very noisy down low in the quiet passages when I was feeding it 6 volts at 30 dB of gain. So I had to drop the gain out of the DAC down to 2 volts. Then I could play in the high gain mode without adding too much noise. But I could also go back to the middle gain setting on this, and then I can give it the beans out of the DCS DAC, which is, a beautiful, clean DAC source, and we'd be in just fine, just as good a shape. I do think there's a little more bass oomph out of this amp when you've got that sensitivity turned up to 30 dBs. It does sound like it's kicking the bass on the Sysfar a little bit. And we'll try some other headphones down the road. That's going to be another thing to do. But out of the gate, the thing that's striking me is the image just popped forward, the detail popped forward. Stage did not. There's good decay on the reverb, which is, a sign that the amp is giving you a lot of detail. But the instruments are closer to my head than I remember these specific tracks ever playing. I'll do more analysis of that when I get into the full review of this amp, but on first listen, those are my first impressions of this thing. I don't mean to imply, number one, that this is the greatest amp of all time, or number two, that it's the worst amp of all time. This is a high-end quality, obviously insane product. But coming on the heels of a $12,500 amp that I had in here, this is a couple of $1,000s north of there. I am noticing substantial differences, and I'm noticing it in the slam on the bass, the total output of the amp. I was getting just more punchy fun out of that B21 on the dynamic side. And I noticed that the imaging is much stronger on this Mass Kobo. It's locking in the instruments better around me, and the B21 seemed to give me a little more space around, between those instruments, give me a bigger stage effect. This is keeping stuff fairly tight to my head so far. Right now we got some other headphones to try, clearly. Mr. Deitz's ModHouse Tungsten, gonna be on the runway for this thing. Gotta hear it, Mass Kobo, man, with that. And then we'll probably mix in some Atrium and some Caldera and maybe some Meze Elite, or we'll do the 1266. I don't know, but we're gonna do a full review of this thing. That is certainly coming, and I'll try this out. The surprise on this, buttons don't feel that pro grade for a $15,000 product. This is something I would get on my video gear back in the 80s. Power switch, it's a plastic power switch, not thinking that much about it. And then sonically, my initial criticism, and I got to play with it some more. We're going to play with different DAC modes and try different filters and different headphones and see what it does. But the one thing that I'm saying is surprising me out of the gate is that the stage is not terribly wide. The other thing I'm really impressed with and surprised by is the form factor. This thing's small and it's not that heavy. Compared to other amps, you get up to that 15 grand level and you think it's going to be big, chunky, huge coiled power supply. This is fairly small, and the KGSS HV dwarfs this thing in size. So kind of interesting. And you see the Macintosh right next to it. It's like twice the height and twice the size. It's really amazing. And yet this thing's a powerhouse, and it sounds good, and it's definitely clean and smooth and all the good things you want in an amp. So we've got a long way to go with this thing. We'll be doing an absolute full review of this coming forward. I'm super impressed by this thing, though. I mean, you're here. I know I'm hearing something of the highest quality. That jumps across right away.
Wrap this damn show up, or I'm turning on the television.
Wow, what a great first impression from a god-tier amp. You know we're going to do a deep dive into this thing. We're going to do the sound check in an upcoming episode, and this couldn't, frankly, have come at a better time. I don't have a great solid-state option in-house right now, and now I do. So I got to thank Samir so much for lending me this insane product. Sharing experiences is what this hobby should be all about. And given the turn of events in this director's life, this is a much needed bright spot in a pretty dark couple of weeks. So thanks again to Ryan from ModHouse. You know that tungsten is going to be one of the headphones I'm going to be spending time with on this journey for sure.
Yo boy, what's on the show next?
So up next, I have a blind What's in the Box from Audio 46. These are my favorite episodes to do, and it's a box that's been sitting here for a little too long. I'm a little uncomfortable. I got to get this thing open, all right? But this episode was not too shabby either, guys. Make sure you
like, and subscribe. Director's Garage.
It never gets old, does it? Okay, give this episode a thumbs up because Kobo 465, guys, it's the dream. It's the top of the top. Or you can do the other thing because I'm just a lumbering mass. I can't say I blame you either way, and I will see you guys before you know it.
People, can you show me the way to the direct garage? It ain't too far.